what you need to do when you have a buyer or seller. And we've done a little bit this before, so it may be repeat for some of you and it may be brand new for some of you. And, you know, some of you may have done it and I'm confident that on the north side, it may not be a requirement for you just yet, but it will be a requirement eventually. So it's just a good practice to get into the habit of it. And it's really good for us too. So if we have to go back and pull up information on our own transaction, it makes it really easy. So we're sitting in a contact, and this particular contact, I just listed their property yesterday. And Tamika, this one's very much like yours. They bought first, then sold. I did the listing agreement in June. Things had changed. And so I actually did a new listing agreement yesterday, day before yesterday, before I listed it, just to replace the other one, because so many things had changed in their lives and in their thinking between the time frame in June until October when they were ready to list. So sometimes we do that. The reason why I went ahead and put them on a listing agreement in June was to protect me, right? So that nobody snuck in there and listed it, because I already had it under an exclusive. So it just said in the exclusive under further conditions that it wouldn't be listed until they found a home and moved and were ready. So it worked out really well. All right, so here's the listing. There's their buy side and it's all closed. And here is their listing, okay? So I'm going to that opportunity, and I waited to update it so that I could just show you guys real time an actual one. So, you know, you've already set up your opportunity, because you set up your opportunity as soon as you have the opportunity to make money. That's what the opportunity is. So as soon as you have a two-way conversation with a client and they say, yes, I want to list with you, or yes, I want to have an appointment with you about listing even, or yes, I'm going to buy a house, but it's going to be 6 months from now. That's an opportunity, right? Because it's an opportunity for you to make money. Think the opportunity is your pipeline. This is where you're putting your business. So at a glance, you can go in and see how many potential deals you have in your pipeline. So this has been an opportunity in here for a long time. And you'll see I originally estimated a close date of August 14th, right? That's not true anymore. So we're going to do a little cleanup while we're at it. When I go in here after I've listed it, now I've got to go in and clean up a little bit that I haven't done. Now there is an opportunity to tag here. I don't use these tags, but if you end up with so much volume, for instance, Becky, who has 93 right now, she may have tags set up in her so she can segment her opportunities. I don't do that. So it is active, and we're out of the staging now. We're showing, right? I just listed it yesterday. And I'm estimating now a close date. I'm going to take that out about 60 days. And I am going to estimate a close date of the middle of November. And you know, it doesn't matter. And then you can fill out when I had my appointment with them, which was in June, you know, when I got the agreement, which was in June. You can fill those things out that you want. Now, things have changed in the market, and we listed it at 192. So I'm going to change that as well, and I'm going to update it.
Carla?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the close date. What is the norm? Is it 60 or 90 days?
Oh, it's usually 45. I put 60 to give us time for showing, and it's just really based on what your experience is. You know, your lender, if you're working with a buyer, your lender is going to really dictate how long it can take to close, right? Your buyer is going to dictate that. If they tell you they're not interested, you know, they're looking to, their lease is up in 6 months, right? Then you're going to make your close date maybe 7 months out. And the reason we're putting these dates in here is that I'll show you just a minute, but back on your opportunities screen where it's calculating your probable and potential income, this is going to allow you to project and manage your money and your business so that you know what is potentially going to be revenue for you next month and the month after and the month after. So you're really putting these numbers in here in opportunities as opposed to in a purchase agreement. These are for you to manage your business, because the point of the opportunities, one of the points of the opportunities is for you to be able to manage your business. You have to think of this as your business. Now, for somewhere down the line, I neglected to put in the address. So I'm going to put that in here just to make it clean. I should have done that before. So that was just faulty on my part. Now the address is in there and we're all set. Okay. So here, the seller profile, this would only be if they were registered on my website, and they're not. So there's nothing there. But this is where if they were, they would get a guide on my app as we went through the process. So we don't have that here. So documents, this is what I really want to focus on today. This is about your compliance. And this is what you have to have in here in order to honestly get paid, in order to close the file. This is what your managing broker has to have access to. They have to have a file. Remember when we were in class and we learned what the managing broker's responsibilities are? They have to have a file of the documents of your transaction. And you want to have those here too. So if something question comes up down the line, you have easy access to it. So just really kind of consider this your filing cabinet. So this is where we are, and we are at our listed tab because this is a listing, right? And when we created the opportunity, we had to choose that it was residential, and that creates the list of the documents that are required for compliance. And you'll see here where it says listing agreement required, seller's disclosure required, your office policy or handbook required, right? The MLS printout, it's required. A seller net sheet is required. And then everything else is conditional, right? So lead-based paint isn't necessarily required. It would be required for any house built after or before 1978, right? So, and obviously an amendment is not going to be required unless you wrote one. And if there is an amendment to the listing agreement, for instance, to extend it or to change the price, this is to change the price, and that's to extend, or something else. Maybe they decided they were going to take the washer and dryer with them, and now you have to amend because they're not leaving the washer and dryer. You'd have to add those, but they're only required if you do them, right? And then you can also add other documents in here. If there's some communication, if I had a situation that I thought potentially later on down the road might be a question, and I would need to have my responses to that, I have even printed emails as a PDF and uploaded them here. So I had them in a filing cabinet all together. So does everybody know how to put documents in here? It's really, really simple. And I'm going to show you one right here because I printed this morning since it went live yesterday. So this is, I'm going to add the MLS sheet, and I already printed it to a PDF from the MLS. And so here I'm going to have to drag and drop it from one of my files. Now, I don't know if you're going to actually get the screen switch here, but if not, you'll see what I'm doing here when I drop it in. So I'm just going to drop it in. Can you guys see that? I don't know what comes through on your end, but I'm going to drop it in, and then I'm going to hit assign. Okay. And now it's there, right? And so now it's there. And I also need to put the seller's disclosure in there. Well, the seller's disclosure is in my DocuSign because they signed it. Well, they actually signed it wet and missed a signature. So I had to put it in my DocuSign and send it back to her to get a second signature on there. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. You just go to DocuSign, and it's going to pull up the whole list of all the documents that I have in DocuSign that have been signed. And I'm looking for the seller's disclosure signed, right? So it's right here. So I'm going to pick it, and I'm going to click assign, and it's going to magically show up there. And now I have, all I need to do is a seller net sheet, which I haven't done yet because I do have one, but it's at 160 and we didn't list at 160. So I need to put that in there. And after I put that in there, I'm going to hit submit to Market Center. And then whoever's in charge of compliance on the South office, it's Diane, and I'm not sure who it is in the North office, but they're going to review it. And if there's any problem with your documents, if you didn't get signatures that you needed, then it's going to show up with your little red dot up here and tell you you have a problem. And then here it's going to pop in here, and it's going to tell you why it was rejected and what you need to correct. Okay. So you're going to do that when you list. Now, when we go under contract, we're going to go over here to under contract, and we're going to do the same thing. So under contract, we're going to have to put in our purchase agreement, our seller's disclosure that's signed by the buyer, because this is a listing, right? We're going to have to put in a copy. We don't have to put in a copy of the earnest money, but I recommend that you do. Any counter offers, the inspection responses. Now there's not a place on here for the inspection itself, but I always upload the inspection here because if somebody calls me, I don't want to have to look a million places. This is my filing cabinet for the entire the entire transaction. So I just put all my documents in here. And again, when I get ready to close, when we're getting closer, we're ready to close, then I'm going to submit these to the market center to be reviewed. And you want to do it as soon as you can, because you don't want to be waiting around the day of closing and you've just submitted them all and you're waiting for them back. Now, after you close, you're going to have one more time, like, one more bin of documents that are going to be in your file, in your filing cabinet for this transaction. And you're going to have to put in your closing documents, your closing statement, the ALTA statement, your title commitment, the warranty deed, the vendor affidavit, the sales disclosure that goes to the county, and the seller's disclosure that gets re-signed at closing. So those documents are all going to need to be in here as well. All right, anybody have any questions about this?
I guess I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so are we gonna, I'm looking at the top one with the closing documents. So can we upload all the files together, or are we gonna have to separate each one of them?
Well, in the South office, and I honestly don't know the answer to that in the North office, and I will ask and see if I can get some more clarity on that. But in the South office, you have a choice. Now, I recommend scanning them in individually, again, because I like to send my settlement statement back out to my buyers in January or February, middle of January, so they make sure they have it handy for their taxes. And if I have them all lumped in here together, I can't just easily send that one document out. So that's the main reason why I separate them out. Also, if anyone ever came back and asked me, did I have a copy of their warranty deed? I wouldn't have to go through all of them. And it only takes, it might take me 1 second to do this and 3 seconds to separate them out. So, but it's going to be a personal choice unless the office has a requirement. And,
Okay.
I'm going to make myself a note to check on your compliance requirements in Northeast. But this is more than just compliance and doing it because you have to, because this is a really good leverage piece for you. And I know several of you were talking about organization. You don't want to have to go back at the end of the year and try to figure out all the deals that you closed and get all of this done. So make yourself a practice of doing it immediately, right after the transaction is done, or as soon as you start a deal, as soon as you write a contract, get it in here. And that way you don't have to go remember or find it later.
I do understand that. That doesn't make sense. Since you said sending it out to the buyer, do you send out to the buyer or the seller for the
buyer? Because they can write off some of their closing costs and things on their income tax returns, potentially. I'm not an accountant, but I know that that's a possibility. So all of my 2020 buyers in January of 2021 will get a copy from me of their settlement statement so that they have it for their taxes. Now they got it at closing, but they have to go find it. But what is that really?
Do you have a note that you send with them, a specific note that you?
I just say that's what I say. I just want to make sure you have this for your taxes. Your accountant or whoever prepares your taxes is probably going to want to see this. And I didn't want you have to go back and search for it. Let me know if you have any questions, just something like that. But it's a touch point, right? That is a touch point that you guys remember that statistic about, 80% of people at closing day say that they would use their realtor again, and only like 13% or something do. I can't never remember those exact numbers, but it's a huge span. This is how we make sure that doesn't happen, so that we get, like you, Tamika, we get our first client to be a repeat client. We want that. When they get ready to sell the house we just sold them, we want them to remember us. And the way we do that is we keep adding value. If I give them their closing statement in January when they need it to do their taxes, they're going to remember me because I thought of them, right? So I make a point to do that every year. That was not what I intended to talk about today, but it's a good lead way. I love when that happens. All right, any more questions about compliance? I just want to show you one more thing. So opportunities are pretty cool now. Once you've put them in here, You know, this cultivate, if we haven't talked about this yet, this cultivate is where you put all of those people when you create an opportunity. These are those ones that are not quite ready yet, but they have told you that they are going to be buying and selling, right? You put them in here. Then when you have an appointment, you move them into the appointment stage. And then when they become active, you move them into the active stage so you can see what you've got in your pipeline. And when they're under contract, you move them into the under contract stage. And then when they close, you move them into close. And what that does for you is it creates for you over here exactly what your potential and probable income might be. Does anybody know the difference between potential and probable?
I'm thinking probable is you've already had an appointment with them, or either you're already, well, no, all of them, most of the time you had appointments with them. Probable.
Well, you haven't though. You haven't had appointments, all of them, because if they're in cultivate, you haven't had an appointment yet.
Oh, I thought we only put the ones that we had appointments.
I would say probably would, or probable would be what you will probably make. Potential is what you could make.
Right. And the difference, exactly right. The difference between the two is the conversion rate, right?
Possibly.
So the number of people that tell you that they're going to work with you or that they're going to buy a house. And then here they tell you that maybe they'll work with you, right? Because they'll have an appointment with you. And then here, when they're active, they've committed to working with you. So the actives, the probable and potential are much closer in your actives, if you were to look at just your actives, than your cultivate, because your cultivate has that, if you remember, and we're going to go over that here in a minute, you know, between a 65 and 75% conversion rate, because they may also know 3 or 4 other realtors and they're only going to work with the one that they remember the most, the moment that they decide they're going to buy, so, or sell. So, you know, your probability is much lower in the cultivate stage once you get an appointment. That's why making an appointment is so crucial. And this goes back to what I said. I signed a listing agreement in June for a property that I just listed yesterday. The reason why I signed that agreement in June is that increased my probability that when they were ready to sell in October, it would be me, because we had a contract for it. If I hadn't signed with them in June, they could have been sitting at breakfast one day and a realtor walk up and asked them, did they want to sell a house? And they said yes. And all of a sudden they aren't my client anymore. Right? So that's the difference between probable and potential. Now, when you get over here to under contract, right, there are some times that under contract doesn't close. Has anybody had one of those yet? Where you got under contract and then for one reason or another, it fell off, you didn't get to close, right? Could be financing fell through, could be an inspection issue, could be an appraisal issue. Could be they lost their job, you know, all kinds of things could happen. So you're not even at 100% when you're under contract. Now, when you move under contract to, say I got one under contract and I can show you within under contract. So here, I haven't moved him yet. So we are now over here in the appraisal stage. So we have gotten through escrow, we have gotten through inspections, and now he is in appraisal. So my probability went up, right? Because we made it through another step. He ironically, you know, he's clear to close except for the appraisal. But once we get to clear to close, then our probability goes way up, you know, like, look, it's 90% right there. That's what they're using right here, is that 90% of the time when I get clear to close, I'm going to close. And then it'll adjust. The artificial intelligence platform that we're on is going to adjust to your conversion ratio. It's going to start with whatever the average conversion ratio is. So Tamika, it's your business. You get to decide what you want to do, but I highly recommend that you use this the way it was designed, which is that you put anybody that says to you, yes, I want to buy a house, but it's going to be a year. That is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to earn money, if you want to look at it that way, or it's an opportunity for you to have a client. And so as soon as you have that conversation and you know they're an opportunity, I recommend that you get them into an opportunity, because then you can focus on them. And I haven't talked about this for a while, but follow-up Fridays. So, you know, I always did follow-up Fridays, and on follow-up Fridays, everybody that I was cultivating heard from me on follow-up Friday, because I want to make sure that when they're ready, I'm there for them. All right. Any more questions on that?
I have a question. How did you get to the screen you just showed where you moved your buyers over? Where was you
Oh,
at?
I just clicked on it. Here we are under contract.
Okay. Because I didn't see it last week. I went on there and I put a buyer in. I didn't see all of those steps. I'm gonna have to look again.
These, and I didn't change the steps. So these steps are the ones that are, you can change. You can customize these steps for yourself. I just didn't. I like to follow models and systems, and I figure if somebody else created it this way, this is an average of a bunch of agents that got together and said this is their best practices. So I'm going to use their best practices instead of creating my own. If somewhere down the line I found, because I worked with seniors, maybe I found that there was an extra step, I might have added it, but I never found that necessary. So I would definitely start with using the system that's in place. This, the Red Book tells you that, right? Master the system as it's written, and then you can adapt and be creative and do things that fit your business style. All right, we all good on that?
Yes.
All right, here's the next thing I want to show you. Did the screen change, or do I have to unshare and reshare? Do you have our website now?
Yes.